Yesterday we had a shir on the dance, and today we've got a shir on the kiss. Who would have thought in Masechta Zevachim we would have two shirim of all? Everybody thinks Zevachim, and it's going to be so dry, and it's going to be so technical. Yesterday we have a shir on the dance, and today the kiss. וקרן מזרחית דרומית לא היה לה יסוד. Zevachim Daf Nun Gimel Amud Bet, because the kiss is the ultimate expression of connection. And connection needs two opposite dynamics. For connection to take place, you need two opposite dynamics. You need a reaching out by one party, and you need a withdrawing by another. You need a giving, you need a receiving. You need a male dynamic, and you need a female dynamic. You need a mitzvah aseh, which is go out and do something, and you need a mitzvah lo aseh, which is stop and don't do. You need avodah, which is go and serve Hashem and bring korbanot and daven. And you need Torah, which is, when it comes to Torah, we talk about Kabbalat Torah, being able to receive it, being able to take it in. You need to reach out, so one needs to reach out and one needs to take in. And of course that dynamic shifts. It's not that the one is always giving out and the other is always taking in, but in any given moment, in a relationship of deep connection, somebody is reaching out and somebody is taking in. Somebody is giving and somebody is receiving. And with that, we'll be able to understand this amazing, amazing piece of Gemara. We've been dealing with the whole area of shfichat shirayim ala yesod, pouring out the leftover blood onto the yesod, is the term that is used for this kind of step that is at the bottom of the mizbeach. There's a step which is an amah high and an amah wide. And it surrounds most of the mizbeach. And it's on that yesod that you pour the leftover blood, and we said that's really the yesod's only function, is that it's used as the place onto which we pour the leftover blood. But in our Gemara today, we're exposed to the fact that the yesod did not go around the entire mizbeach. That the yesod was on the western side of the mizbeach, that's the part that is opposite the heichal. It was on the northern part of the mizbeach. And then just for one amma on the east, and one amma on the south. It just went around the corner by one amma on each of them, and the rest of the southeast corner didn't have a yesod. And we learn that from the Mishnah talks about in the Korban Olah, that it has to be, the Shchita has to take place in the north. Again, we're on this idea that we talked about, that every Korban and every part of the Korban has a makom, it has its place. The place of an Olah is, the Shchita is in the north. The Kibud Dam, the receiving of the blood, is into a Klisharet in the north. The damat ta'un shtei matanot shehen arba, and the blood has to be sprinkled in a way that is called two, which are four. So you sprinkle the blood on the corner in such a way that the blood goes down both sides of the corner. It's one act of sprinkling, but it hits both corners, it hits both sides. So you hit all four sides of the mizbeach with two acts of sprinkling. And the Gemara goes into a discussion of why that is. And the Gemara concludes that Olah tu na yesod, a korban olah, the sprinkling has to be where there is a yesod. וקרן מזרחית דרומית לא היה לה יסוד. And the southeast corner of the mizbeach did not have a yesod. Then the Gemara goes, in my time, why? So Rabbi Loza says, because it was in the chelek, the mizbeach was in the chelek of toref, of the toref. We'll see in a moment. The toref is Binyamin. The mizbeach consumed one amma into Yehuda's portion. And then Rabbi Levi bar Chama says, Binyamin. A strip of one amma, one little piece, emerged from Yehuda's section and penetrated Binyamin's section. So if you think of the Beis HaMikdash, the east side of the Beis HaMikdash was Yehuda. So all the area, the big area with all the offices and the chambers and the rooms and where everybody stood, all the way up to the Mizbeach. From the Mizbeach, all the way through to the Kodshei Kadoshim, including the Heichal, was Binyamin. So the boundary between Binyamin and Yehuda goes through the Beis HaMikdash at the Mizbeach, but there's a protrusion from Yehuda into Binyamin's portion, which includes the southeast corner of the Mizbeach. Binyamin the tzaddik was not happy about that, and so it goes on. Now, to understand this Gemara, we need to go into the Midrashic world. Says the Tanchuma, Amar Yishai leDavid beno harei hasha'ah lekayem oto ha'arvut shel zekenecha she'arav et Binyamin miyad aviv. It's time for you, David, descendant of Yehuda, to act as your grandfather did. Your grandfather was Yehuda, and he stood up to Yosef, who they thought at the time was the viceroy of Egypt, and Yehuda said, take me instead of Binyamin, my brother. So he got up and stood in place of Binyamin. Shneimar anochi arvenu, elolech v'otzei oto me'arvuto. Now you need to go. Binyamin is in trouble. Shaul HaMelech is from Binyamin. And Shaul is facing Goliath, who's about to destroy Am Yisrael. You need to go and redeem Shaul, because that's what Yehuda does. They step in and they take over. So go in. So there you've got the action. There you've got Yehuda as the giver, as the actor. ואת אחיך תפקוד לשלום ואת ערובתם תיקח אין ערובתם אלא ערבות. מה עשה דוד? הלך וקיים את הערבות והרג את גוליית. So David went and stood in for Shaul. Shaul should have gone to fight Goliath, but he couldn't. So David, descendant of Yehuda, steps in place of Shaul, just as his grandfather Yehuda stepped in place of Binyamin. אמר לה הקדוש ברוך הוא חייך כשם שנתת את נפשך על שאול שהוא משבטו של בנימין, just as you gave your life for Binyamin, כשם שעשה יהודה זקנך על בנימין, as Yehuda did, כך אני נותן בית המקדש בגבולך ובגבול בנימין. So I'm going to put the Beis HaMikdash in both of your territories. You will both own the Beis HaMikdash area, and in fact you will interface, your boundary will be in the Beis HaMikdash itself. It's interesting, the Medrash, why doesn't the Medrash say, because you stepped in to save Binyamin, so I'll put it in I'll reward you. What did Binyamin do? Yehuda did it all. Why does Hashem say, the reward is you'll both have the Beis HaMikdash? Because that's what arvut means. Arvut means la'arev, is to mix up. Arvut means you are me and I am you. We're one people. Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh. We are one people. So when an arev steps in, an arev is a principle we've got in loans. If I say, I will stand up for this person, I will stand security for this person, I'm standing in his place. And that's what arvut is, mixing the identities into one identity. So Yehuda says, I will be Binyamin. David says, I will be Shaul. The Ribbono Shel Olam says, if you have connected so intimately that you are one another, you've created arvut, I will mix you together on the Beis HaMikdash place. And a piece of Yehuda will penetrate into Binyamin so that the connection is totally intimate. It's not even, the Gidon in carpentry. Don't you do that sometimes? If you want a joint, if you want two pieces of wood to stay together properly, don't you create a protrusion that enters from the one piece of wood into the other and you glue it? What's that called? That protrusion. But to create that kind of connection that can't be pulled aside, you need a protrusion. You need something that reaches out and something that is a beit kibul that receives it. You need a hole in the one and a tongue in the other, and you need to insert the tongue into the hole so that the two stay together. That's chibur. That's a joining. That's arvut. Says the Ribbono Shel Olam, I'll design the Beis HaMikdash in such a way that you, Yehuda, will penetrate into the area of Binyamin and create such intimate connection that's the arvut which you created when you stepped in to take the place of Binyamin, both in the time of Yosef and again in the time of Shaul HaMelech. Is it called the dovetail? So this Medrash also talks, it didn't come out in it does, if you carry on the next page in the Tanchuma, talks about how do you know that it was so, and at the end the Medrash says, "V'lo od ela chayecha shekol hashvatim golim." Furthermore, at a time in history, all the 10 tribes will be exiled. V'shevet Yehuda u'Binyamin einan golim imahem, and Yehuda and Binyamin will not go into galut. Lama sheshnei hashvatim ha'elu hem haaminu bi v'kidshu et shmi b'yamim Moshe. For another reason, these two, again, it's Yehuda and Binyamin that work together to create emunah in me at the Yam Suf. So this grows out. This is so interesting. Now, why are we moving into Yam Suf? We've just talked about the intimate connection of Arvut between Yehuda and Binyamin, and now we're talking about Yam Suf. What happened at Kriyat Yam Suf that was so amazing? So for that we have the Mechilta. And the Mechilta says, Kshamdu Shvatim alayam, when the Shvatim were there, Ze omer ani yored tchila yam, Ze omer ani yored tchila. Each one said, I'll go down to the sea first. Mitoch shayu omdim v'tzoavim kofat shifto shel Binyamin v'yored liyam tchila. While they were busy arguing, Binyamin went in and he got into the water. And there, Sarei Yehuda regamtam. Sarei Zulin, etc., etc. The Gemara then goes on to say, and Yehuda stoned them. Yehuda was angry at them. The Mechilta goes on to give an example, a story. At the end of it, the Rebbeinu Shalom says, Kach Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Maschar yitzlu b'nei Binyamin she'adu liyam tchila. What reward should Binyamin get for going right into the sea? Shar Shechina b'chelko, that's the Beis HaMikdash will be in his place. Umaschar natlu shifto shel Yehuda shayu rogmim otan. And what reward does Yehuda get for stoning Binyamin for going in? So Binyamin rushes into the water and Yehuda says, no, this is not the right thing to do. Wait until the sea splits. So they've got two very different approaches in how to relate to the sea. And says the Rebbeinu Shalom, I'll reward them both. Yehuda zochel malchus. Yehuda gets malchus and Binyamin gets the place of the Beis HaMikdash. Now it's important for many reasons to learn this like the Marshal learns it. And he says, based on our Gemara here, we can't get into the reasons for it. But you've actually got to switch it around. And you've got to say it was Yehuda who went into the water first and Binyamin who stoned them. So Yehuda, and this now fits into the overview. Yehuda now is the giver. What did we say? In intimate connection, you need a giver, you need a receiver. You need somebody who's acting, you need somebody who's holding back. You can't have both people are charismatic, both people are forceful personalities. At any given time, if one person is expressing the forcefulness of their personality, the other has to be able to stand back and receive it. And then the other can be forcefully expressing the personality, and the other one has to be able to hold back and receive it. You always need to have that kind of yin and yang in order for the relationship to function. Yehuda now is the one who goes into the sea, who starts, he's acting, he gets malchus. What is malchus? Kingship, runs the country, manages the country. That's Yehuda. What does Binyamin get? He gets the Beis HaMikdash. That's the area of restraint, the area of kedusha. It's a different kind of an area. Now, if we go a little bit further and we understand the brachas that Yaakov gave to each of them, so for Yehuda, because in a sense, these two elements are the elements of Torah and Avodah, as we said. Torah, you've got to be able to receive. Torah, you've got to be able to take it in. The power is the Rebbeinu Shalom. The power is in the Torah. It's not in me. I receive the Torah. Avodah, when it comes to service, I've got to be active. I've got to do. I've got to daven. I've got to bring a korban. I've got to be mekayim the mitzvahs. I have to do the mitzvot. So we have these two elements. One is to receive Torah and to express mitzvot and to express avodah. So when it comes to Yehuda, Yaakov says, Lo yasu shevet miuda mechokek mi bein raglav. It says, Unklus, that means the safra mi bnei benoi. The descendants of Yehuda will be Talmidei Chachomim. They'll all be people who receive the Torah. When it comes to Binyamin, it says, Binyamin ze'ev yitraf. That's why it's called the Torah in our Gemara. And the Unkelus says, Betzafra v'panya yohon mekarvin kahanya kurbana. Yaakov is predicting that in Binyamin's area, the Kohanim will bring korbanos every morning and every evening. That's the area of Avodah. And so we have these two elements. We have Yehuda, who's out to be active, who believes you've got to set things going. The human being has to be active. And then you've got Binyamin, who's more passive. Binyamin who stands back. Binyamin in our Gemara is called Binyamin HaTzadik, V'haya Binyamin HaTzadik mitzta'er aleha. Binyamin HaTzadik reminds us of the term Yosef HaTzadik. The two sons of Rachel. Yosef was a tzaddik. Why is he a tzaddik? Because with the Eshet Potiphar, what does he do? Holds back. Because mitzvahs, there are two sides to mitzvahs. You mess up in mitzvahs when you do what you shouldn't do. You're overactive. Or you don't do what you should do. That's also a problem. You're over passive. You're meant to be doing something and you don't. When you have not done what you ought to do, you bring a korban olah. When you did what you ought not to have done, you bring a korban chatos. That's what most of the korbanot are for, but it's most of the messing up. Whenever you mess up, whenever you say to yourself, I missed an opportunity, I messed up. It's always either I did something I shouldn't have done, or I didn't do something I could have done. That's what the korbanot are for. So Binyamin is the one who's able to stand back and not do things. Yehuda is the one who's able to go forward and get things done. Yehuda is Malchut, and Binyamin is always referred to, and Yosef are always referred to as Yesod. So in the Sfirot, when the power of Hashem goes through the Sfirot from Keter, from the highest level, and it comes down ultimately to Yesod. Yesod is the foundation. Yesod is Hashem at his most contracted form, at his most held back. He holds back so that Malchut can happen. Malchut means a physical kingship. A king comes, David HaMelech comes and runs the world. What about the Rebbeinu Shalom? The Rebbeinu Shalom holds back with Yesod so that Malchut can come in. That interface between Yesod and Malchut is the same interface we're talking about. The male-female, the give, the take, the active and the passive. These are all the elements of that intimate arvut, that ability to be so closely connected, comes from the connection between Yesod and Malchut. And Yesod, says the Gemara in Chagiga, Haaretz alma omedet al ha'amudim. The world, the universe stands on pillars. Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua al amud echad. Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua says, not pillars, one pillar. V'tzadik shemo. What the world stands on is tzaddik, shneimar v'tzadik yesod olam. There we've got the yesod. Tzaddik, that's Binyamin tzaddik. He is the yesod. That's why the yesod is only in Binyamin's area. There's no yesod in Yehuda's area. Because yesod is about holding back. Yesod is about not doing. And Yehuda is an active person. Yehuda does. Yehuda penetrates into Binyamin. Binyamin holds back. And that's the meaning of Yesod. And this concept that we end the shir with, that Tzaddik Yesod Olam, means, yes, in relationship you need give and you need take. In Avodas Hashem you need avodah, you need giving, and you need restraining to be able to hold back. In every situation, you need the two pieces. You need the piece that goes out and is active, and you need the piece that can restrain and that can constrain itself and that can receive. But which is the yesod? Where do you start from? In a relationship, what's important? Where do you start from? Tzaddik yesod olam. You start with yesod. You start with a tzaddik who knows how to hold back. Many years ago, I was in a kosher hotel in Switzerland, and one evening, the ambassador of South Africa happened to be there, and he came in and he was terribly wounded. He looked a mess. I said, what happened to you? He said, I went skiing. He said, they didn't teach us how to stop. They only taught us how to go. Surely the first thing they should teach when you ski is how to stop. And to me, that was a lesson in life. You need to know how to stop before you learn how to go. You need to know how to take before you learn how to give. You need to learn how to hold back before you learn how to be active. You need to be in Yesod before you can be in Malchus. And Tzaddik Yesod Olam, because that's the basis of the world. Being able to hold back, the mitzvahs lo ta'aseh, is where the Yirat Shamayim is. Being able to hold back, be able to not do what you want to do, is the Yesod Olam. That's the foundation of the whole world. If you know how to hold back, then you can work into a situation where you're able to give and you're able to be active, and it won't come from a place of ego. If you don't know how to hold your ego in check and you're just doing and giving and building, then you've got to know where it's coming from. As we said yesterday, you've got to analyze what the makor of your feelings are, what the makor of your actions are. Where do they start from? What's the fountainhead? Is the fountainhead ego, or is the fountainhead avodas Hashem? That depends on whether you're a tzaddik or not. If you've worked on yourself and you're able to hold back, but here you choose not to hold back. I know how to keep quiet, but here I'm going to speak. I know how to watch, here I'm going to intervene. You've got to first make sure that we know how to hold back, so that when we do act, we're acting from a true place, from a right place, and from a good place, rather than from a place of self-interest.